Hi everybody, my name is Ian and today I'm joined by my instructor Sifu Joel.
Hi, everybody.
Today we're going to be actually reviewing a really interesting video that I found on YouTube regarding Jeet Kune Do being challenged versus Muay Thai, and I think that we have some really interesting thoughts upon that. Fight Commentary Breakdowns, Jerry had some really interesting thoughts and observations and some questions, and I think that Sifu Joel and I are here to kind of just maybe answer some of those and shed some insight on our experience for Jeet Kune Do. So I know you obviously, and before we get into that as well, why don't you talk a little bit about your Jeet Kune Do training history?
I started training in I had a black belt from a guy named Ed Monahan who was with the Concepts people when I was in LA. And I started training with them. And I trained with some really great guys from the Inosanto Academy for a couple of years. And then Ed moved over and started training with Jerry Poteet. And that's how I got introduced to him through Ed Monahan, and, went through seminars and a class thing that he set up. And then finally in 2006, to 2010, I was doing private sessions with him for like every week. So on top of working security and teaching my own classes and teaching classes for Ed and training with some other really great people too. I think Los Angeles is just a ton of people.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but on top of all the training experience that you've had, you've also trained with some really high-level people in Muay Thai as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I trained with Puck, Pong, Malapet. They're all Thai champions and all really amazing guys.
It's quite an extensive rate of training. So we kind of just wanted to clarify our background with that. I myself have been training under Sifu Joel for almost a decade now. I have an instructor, technically two instructorships under you for both the Kung Fu training and the Jeet Kune Do training. So with all that, we're going to go ahead and jump into this video. But before we do that, guys, if you enjoy this kind of content, then please do us a favor, like and subscribe the video, help get us out there. We're really here to kind of shed some light on the JKD world that we feel people have been sleeping on for a really long time. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and look at some of these clips.
JKD and Muay Thai both have kicks, right? So they're fighting under boxing rules, which is really interesting. So now after the Kung Fu guy stalls for a little bit, our JKD...
Okay, even for just me right here, Sifu Joel, does the guy on the left is supposedly Jeet Kune Do practitioner, does that look anything like a proper stance to you?
No, not to me. It's an interesting thing. I was going to say that the Muay Thai guy actually looks like that. But if you look in the background, this video is flipped. At least it looks flipped to me. So the 2021 in the background there is going the wrong way, which is kind of ironic. So that means that instead of being the JKD guy on a left lead, he's on a right lead. Instead of the Muay Thai guy being on a right lead, he's on left lead. But from what I've trained in two different lineages and just with tons of people fighting, the guy on the right for us, the quote unquote Muay Thai guy, looks more Jeet Kune Do than the other guy. Hands are ready to fire, good stance. He's a little bit more turned over than I would like to be. I like to be a really aggressive forward stance with toes more towards the target. The other guy, it looks like he crapped his pants, to be perfectly honest. He doesn't look like he has any clue about anything to me.
I was going to say as well, he looks like he's very uncomfortable being in this position right now.
He's a newbie. You get these little amateur fight things coming up there. And when you usually get somebody who's got real training, holy
yeah.
Yeah, this is like this is a person who's never actually trained. They didn't do footwork drills in a school somewhere. They didn't do punches. I've trained with a ton of people, and not just in Jeet Kune Do, not just in Muay Thai, but in a lot of other arts. And you do basic footwork drills, you do basic punching in the air drills, then you put it on focus mitts, you do a heavy bag, you shield work, you do a lot of pad work, and then you get into sparring work. This guy seems to have skipped over everything and gone straight to sparring with somebody else. And you shouldn't even spar with somebody else first. You need to develop those skills inside of your own school first. It's really important, whatever you're training, and Jeet Kune Do is no exception to that. You need to cultivate skills, and then you need to challenge those skills. And he hasn't actually cultivated any skills. He's throwing, like I said, I work security in Hollywood for years. He looks like he's had about 6-7 drinks and is in the parking lot throwing punches, trying to fight some guy, and doesn't know anything. That's what it looks like to me. The other guy, he's got some base level skills. I compare to the guys I know, and they're monsters. This guy doesn't quite look like.
With a lot of that idea about cultivation and stuff, it's very apparent in his training right here. Simply like aside from all the flaws and stuff that we're pointing out, but look at his quality of hits that he's using with that. I think that
he's got no hit dynamic. Well, there's no stability, so he has
Right.
zero stability. And when you don't have any stability, you can't have mobility, which he does. He's flopping all over the place. And then from there, you go into hit. So he can't hit because he doesn't have any stability underneath him. And he's got these floppy moving. He's just basically just kind of walking around. The other guy, why hasn't he murdered him already?
Exactly. I mean, look at this moment right here.
The guys that I train with in Muay Thai, they would have been unloading, just like jab, cross, hook, uppercut, just throwing a flurry, just a big old combo of just bomb, 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 and would have just been exploding and just wrecked this guy.
Where are his hands?
His hands, it's literally like he's I don't know.
And this is how it is the entire fight. There's zero striking ability within this. Everything is coming from the shoulder. There's no line of directness. He's
not
ducking his
center.
head.
There's no stability. Yeah. His idea of a back fist is that spinning crappy back fist.
Pretty sad.
His instructor, that guy back there, someone tell me who that guy is.
Yeah, who's that?
If because that guy should be like pulling that hat down.
I think that kind of the overarching thing with this is we're looking at things about what you maybe should be looking for as a JKD practitioner. For one, at least as far as your school, as Sifu Joe has mentioned many times, is that in order to be able to even throw a punch or to throw a strike, you need to be stable, and this person has zero control of his body in that way. Then you go ahead and look at things that, even as much as we might disagree with a lot of stuff that's in the book or whatever, the fact that there is no directness, he's not hitting with center, there's zero efficiency aspect to it, zero distancing and timing.
I think one of the things that people forget is experts, anybody who's any good at anything, it's not flash. And JKD, despite Bruce Lee telling everybody to watch out for their ornamentation, they've got so much crap added in there. Watch my spinny this and watch my blah, 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 that. No, you're basics. And a good boxer becomes a great boxer by working fundamentals. A Muay Thai fighter doesn't do fancy, flashy stuff. It's very simple. It's in there. It's in the principles. Always think hit, simplicity, efficiency, longest weapon, the nearest target. Those are the 4 principles that Bruce Lee gave to Jerry Poteet, and that's what I trained every session. Every time we trained, that's what we did. This guy exhibits none of that. Get into stance, get into footwork, which challenges your stance. Then get into punching, and then punching with footwork. Then add in some kicking, and then you start adding in another person with focus mitts, and then way later you start putting on gloves and mouth guards. And again, this guy looks like he looked at the cover, saw a couple of clips of Bruce Lee, heard maybe something about it, said, I can do Jeet Kune Do.
And unfortunately, that's a pretty commonality that we see pretty often on the internet, isn't it?
Yeah. Or is he one of those it's just a philosophy? Well, yeah, except all the people that like Sifu Jerry and all the people at LA, the Chinatown school, they were punching each other. So it wasn't just that. It was real deal. Like there's actual drills and understanding that go with it. There is philosophy. There is really, and Bruce Lee was big on the philosophy as I am, as Sifu Jerry was, because it does go hand in hand. But you can find the same thing in any of the other martial arts. I trained in Aikido in Japan, and philosophy is very much so a part of it, but it's applied directly to the movements. I do feel the Muay Thai guy was controlling. Look, he's got stability. He's got mobility, and there's punches. Now, they're not doing kicks because they're doing hands only, but he's coming in there. He's doing a little bit of arm swinging, but, Muay Thai, as most people train it these days, is a sport. Jeet Kune Do is not. And I think that's something else that comes into it that goes above and beyond, whether you're calling it Muay Thai or Jeet Kune Do or whatever you want to call it. It's two individuals. And at the end of the day, it's individual A, that guy, versus individual B. And if you just took that off and you take all the names off of them, what are they cultivating? Well, whatever individual B was cultivating, Muay Thai or whatever, he's got it figured out way more than this other guy. That guy doesn't have a clue.
So that's kind of our thoughts regarding this whole situation. But one other thing that we might want to cover before we end the video is just maybe answering some of Jerry's actual questions and kind of just giving our thoughts on that.
Let's get to it. I'd love to answer the questions.
Okay, so Jerry had a really good question right here, which is a great way to kind of kick off. And I like the fact that he's pretty observant with, just fighting in general, regardless of whatever style because I don't know him very well, he or may not train in. But take a listen and watch this clip.
Also, JKD guy seems very unbalanced if you look. I don't know why. See, he seems very, very unbalanced. Is it something in the JKD training that's making him unbalanced? Like, is JKD Are some of the strikes, some of the transitions just naturally unbalanced?
Sifu Joe, what do you think about that?
Jerry brings up a really good question. Is there something in the training? And I don't think it's the training, because this guy hasn't had any training in Jeet Kune Do. I've trained in 2 schools of Jeet Kune Do, and I started with the Inosanto, the Concepts group, and I've trained under several of Danny's instructors. And then with Jerry Poteet, who I train with directly and I'm an instructor under. No, none of those people would consider this guy a Jeet Kune Do practitioner, and none of them, regardless of any of the people that are, you know, higher or lower level, would consider him any good at this. So I don't think it's, or would teach any of these movements. It's not the Jeet Kune Do training. It's the individual. He just slapped a name on it. And if you take the name away from it and you realize, you know, he just doesn't know anything at all.
Yeah, it looks like he's got 0 training whatsoever.
Was it because he was trying all this head movement he was unfamiliar with? That's why he's bounced, or it's just bad fundamentals?
I think that's exactly it. He's unfamiliar with any kind of real head movement. I don't know where he's picking it up from. I don't know who his quote unquote JKD people are, but he's unfamiliar with it. He doesn't know what he's doing.
This guy, Feng Shaoxia, trained JKD in China. So I do not know, and for viewers who can inform me, let me know how good / how developed are the various branches of JKD in China.
I don't know anybody in China. Really, when you start getting outside of California, and I lived in California for 14 years, the schools were Seattle, Oakland, and LA. And kind of, if you're not there or from there or trained like you did, Ian, with me, you know, in Oklahoma, or somebody here in Winnipeg training with me, you're just too far. I have a suspicion on this one. I think he sort of looked at the Tao Jeet Kune Do a little bit. He's one of those philosophy guys, and he thinks he knows it all. Also, there was a lot of certificate selling going overseas, and I don't know if China got into that or not. Things, even in the United States and Canada, it's really difficult. But you get into like South America, you start getting into Europe and Asia. And like, I have no idea if anybody's even in Africa. And, you know, a lot of them bought certificates just flat out. Hey, here's X amount of dollars, and did it. And I think that might be the case. So I don't know if this guy did it or his teacher did it. Jerry, you know, keep calling this guy out. Is he Jeet Kune Do? I would say no, he is not Jeet Kune Do. He's not a martial artist of any caliber in any kind of training that I can see. I have trained in, you know, like 10, 12 arts. He's definitely not Jeet Kune Do, which is my first and foremost martial art that I'm an expert in. But keep calling him out. Absolutely. You know, he's completely uncoordinated. He's doing everything wrong. And then maybe Rufus can find somebody that will punch him really well for us.
Thank you guys for watching the video. Thank you, Sifu Joel, for joining us. For you guys,
Thanks,
if you
everybody.
enjoyed this content, make sure that you like and subscribe. We love the comments. What are your guys' thoughts? Have you guys seen other JKD practitioners that do stuff like this? Let us know.
Yeah, and make sure you support Jerry's channel as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to him. He's got some good stuff on there.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in the next one.